This NBC Sports Special, the NHRA U.S. Nationals, is brought to you by Ford and your Ford dealer. Have you driven a Ford lately? By Fram Oil Filters. Fram, you can pay a little now or a lot later. By Goodyear Eagle Radials, the best-selling performance radials in the world. And by Budweiser. With that clean, crisp, cold taste that makes it the king of beers, nothing beats a Bud.
Welcome back to Indianapolis Raceway Park and the 36th U.S. Nationals.
And you're riding along with Kenny Bernstein, who dominated funny car competition for 4 consecutive years. But since moving to Top Fuel this year, well, he's found it pretty tough. He and crew chief Dale Armstrong have only seen one final round, and they lost that. The man they're racing, Michael Brotherton, he out-qualified Bernstein here. He's tough.
Little pieces of material are coming off the supercharger drive belt, the all-important belt that turns that blower. See, they're getting on the injector. The starter is determined it's not a safety problem, but this could be a big problem for Michael Brotherton.
And it could be a big break for Kenny Bernstein. Let's see if the belt stays on the supercharger when Brotherton in the near lane applies all of that horsepower. So far, so good. Now it slips right off. Kenny Bernstein, 520, 268 miles per hour. He'll be thrilled with the win, but not particularly tickled with the performance of the automobile. Kenny Bernstein gliding down the shutdown area, parachute out, brakes applied, everything's safe and sane down there.
Meanwhile, back in the funny car pits, Force's crew and John are working on their blower problem, Don.
Well, you know, they've been pumping that blower every run, and they have to put a new one on, and they test the engine and flip the throttle a couple times, just checking it out. It always seems to work well in the pits.
That's right. It's only when he gets off the throttle at the finish line, Don. Why can't they find him?
It's a very difficult situation, but they're leaving no stone unturned. This next opponent, Ed McCullough, is going to be a tough egg.
And Steve, it has to be tough getting into a car that you know that has a 50-50 chance of blowing up.
Well, one man who doesn't have that problem is Joe Amato. We see his crew chief, Tim Richards, backing him up right now. The challenge for Amato, just get this win like right now, and he'll take the points lead away from Ormsby and then worry about the rest of the U.S. Nationals. But the man who hopes to spoil that for Joe is a long-time adversary, Dick LaHaye from Lansing, Michigan. LaHaye has only won one event this year, but consistency has got him the 3rd place in the points. His crew chief is Goddard Kim. Joe Amato, Old Forge, Pennsylvania, businessman, racer, wants to join Don Garlits, and Shirley Muldowney is the only 3-time Winston champs in Top Fuel.
That's true. Dick LaHaye qualified well here with a 5:06. He is very capable of putting Amato out.
And has had no mechanical problems at all and doesn't have any hair. LaHaye overpowers the racetrack. Amato, 5:06, 275 miles per hour. Joe Amato has wrenched the Top Fuel points lead away from Gary Ormsby. Charlie?
One of the stories that has captivated both this huge crowd and the racing world at large is that of a young man seriously injured this past April. 1 year ago today, Darrell Gwynn was the happiest man on the grounds, having just won the U.S. Nationals Top Fuel title. But for the past 5 months, his every effort has been directed not toward the sport he loves, but to his very survival. It happened on April 15th during an exhibition run at Santa Pod Raceway in Bedfordshire, England, northwest of London. All Darrell intended was a half-track checkout run when tragedy struck. The car violently shredding apart and hitting the wall. Gwynn's injuries were massive, resulting in the loss of the lower half of his left arm, as well as significant paralysis. Since that dreary day in the British Isles, Darrell has clung to one dream: to return to the site of his greatest victory, Indianapolis.
Ladies and gentlemen, your defending champion, Darrell Gwynn.
Today, that dream came true as Darrell Gwynn was welcomed home.
Never thought I'd be welcome here to the U.S. Nationals like I have been this weekend. I knew everybody would be glad to see me, but not in the way and the shape and the form and the love and the care that they have all shown this weekend. Between that, my car running so good, and everybody behind us, it's been a real dream come true for me because I set a goal to be here, and here I am.
Darrell Gwynn, a very courageous young man who has accomplished his goal.
And a man who's very involved today in the operation of his race car. And we see it right now driven by Frank Hawley. That was his father, Jerry. We saw it in front of the car. And his opponent will be Eddie Hill. And even though Eddie Hill has gone winless since the Fall Nationals of 1988, he qualified among the very top cars at 5.03. Now, Frank Hawley, when asked to fill in for the car owner, Darrell Gwynn, responded immediately, winning his very first race, the Spring Nationals. And Don, what is Darrell thinking of right now?
Well, he's watching the car very intently, hoping to pick up on some little thing that the crew won't see from their position, carry it back to the pits for the next round.
So it's Eddie Hill in the far lane, up against Frank Hawley in the Darrell Gwynn car in the near lane. Darrell cheering on Hawley, and Hawley wins it at 5.03 seconds.
Well, the team is doing a great job, and so is Hawley. 5.03, Darrell.
I'll tell you, man, them guys got their act together today, and I just can't. It's unbelievable that team has stayed together like that through all this thick and thin of my accident, and they're still just as competitive as they were when I was driving it. It's great.
Looks to me like he got a good shot at winning this race.
Well, I tell you what, there's not too much pressure on Frank this weekend, so I figured he ought to win.
Good show.
So he's already taken the pressure away from Frank. And he receives congratulations from his father, Jerry. In the first semifinal, it'll be Frank Hawley against Kenny Bernstein. Hawley has the all-important lane choice, as he has the quickest elapsed time from the previous round. In the second semifinal, Laurie Johns against Joe Amato. Amato has the lane choice. Now let's go down to Steve. He's with Frank Hawley.
Well, we were impressed with Joe Amato's 5.06. We were dazzled, Frank, by your 5.03.
Well, you know, Ken Veeney's the kind of guy that even in the midst of a problem weekend like we've had with qualifying, he can come back and turn those low numbers. And, you know, we all had confidence that come race day he'd be able to do that.
And Darrell's a part of this. He's getting involved in the tune-up on this car.
Without question. I'm really impressed at Darrell's recovery because he's back there every round. He's wanting to look at the computer tapes, and he's got a lot to offer. And I think he's helped us out a little bit already.
Indeed. Thanks.
In spite of the fact that Hawley is a two-time funny car champion, he has never won this race. And now we're ready for round 2 of funny cars.
And it will feature, Charlie, a couple of drivers who I'm very sure are darn happy to be here in round number 2. They're from opposite sides of the country. We just saw Art Hindi, and he will be up against Dominic Santucci. Here we get a good look at the sleek fiberglass body that covers the tube frame and 4,000 horsepower nitro engine. Now, Santucci runs only on a regional basis, hits a few of the national events closest to his Glen Willard, Pennsylvania home. Art Hindi, San Bernardino, California. Well, he's had a layoff of about 8 months and only recently returned to the sport. That's why I say they're darn glad to be this far, Don Garland.
You bet. It's impressive just qualifying for the U.S. Nationals. These two guys are in the second round already.
And here's the start. Hindi versus Santucci. Art Hindi loses. Tracks it. Dominic Santucci suddenly becomes a player at 5.40 seconds. You saw his crewman just stare at the board, disbelieving.
That was the first of 4 races of the second round. Still to come, the all-important confrontation between John Force and this man, Ed McCulloch.